Hey everyone, this is Brian, and welcome to the first key, structuring the analysis. This key is very important because it provides the foundation for a lot that follows. It also gives the interviewer an early impression of your skills, so it's important to come out of the gates strong. Again, you're watching the first key in the 7-part video series. As a reminder, I've created videos that deep dive on each and every key. So let's get started on key number 1, structuring the analysis. In this workshop, you're going to learn 3 topics. First, you'll learn the mistakes and pitfalls that many candidates make, so you'll know what to watch out for as you practice. Second, I'm going to teach you 3 strategies on how to make a great case structure that leaves a strong early impression on your case interviewer. And third, you'll learn the exact difference between good versus great, so you'll know how to precisely get a great score, not just a good score. Having interviewed hundreds of candidates, I found that they typically make 3 types of mistakes in the case structure. The number 1 most common mistake is candidates use a framework that is too broad. When interviewers give a case prompt, there are facts and hints in there that can help identify relevant issues given that case context. And many candidates don't pick up on this, and instead they try to recall from memory standard frameworks that are most similar to this type of case. The second most common mistake happens when candidates use what I call a canned framework. Now, this is very much related to the first mistake. What makes it come across as canned is that it's simply more obvious that the candidate is blindly pulling a structure from memory without really thinking about its applicability. And the last common mistake happens when candidates don't describe and appreciate that drivers are dynamic in nature. For example, if the candidate identifies revenue as a key issue, they'll mistakenly talk about the drivers in a clinical or static way and say the drivers of revenue are price and quantity. Now, while this is true, it's much better to put this in the context of the case. So, for example, if we know from the case facts that revenue has been declining, then we should talk about the drivers of revenue as dynamic. Namely, the revenue decline issue could be due to a change in price or a change in quantity. Now let's talk about the 3 strategies on how to craft a great case structure. And hang tight because we will go into great detail on each of these strategies in the following slides. So first, you need to have a deep understanding of the question and make sure that you understand the case context thoroughly. Second, you need to make sure you're identifying those key issues, what I call the first level issues. And then third, you need to find the key drivers behind those first level issues, what I call second level drivers. So let's discuss the first strategy, deeply understanding the question and case context. First, you need to write down the key pieces of the case setup. Doing this will help you to put together a more relevant case structure. Second, you should jot down the questions and underline the key words. It's very important that you actually write out these key questions because it helps you contextualize everything and not get lost in the weeds later on in the case. This is very important. Put a big box around it, underline them, whatever you need to do. Make sure those key questions are easy for you to reference whenever you need to. And then third, again, be careful about being too fast to type the case as a standard type of problem. Remember, the number 1 common mistake I see candidates make is that they have a framework that is too broad. Now let's discuss the second strategy, identifying the relevant first level issues. First, you need to spend time actually thinking about the problem at hand. Lots of people use the time trying to recall from memory the standard framework that the setup is most similar to. But remember, you need to use this time to really think about the problem critically and not just go into doing mode too soon. Second, let those hints and keywords that you've underlined help you identify the relevant topics. Again, the trick here is to use those hints to avoid coming across with too broad of a framework. And third, remember that cases often have more than one key question to answer. Therefore, you need to make sure you're creating an approach to solve both questions, not just one. Now let's discuss the last strategy, which is recognizing and contextualizing the second level drivers. So first, you need to talk through the drivers in a way that demonstrates you have a deep understanding of the problem. Remember, drivers are dynamic in nature and should not be talked about in a clinical fashion. Second, recognize the two very common tricks that happen in almost every case. One common trick is what I call the segment layer. Segments can be different products, geographies, customers, channels, etc. It's important to always think about this relevant segment layer in your structure. The other common trick is to think about changes over time. Again, drivers are not static, so you should almost never just ask for what the data is today, but rather what has happened in this driver over time. Has it gone up, down, or stayed the same? And third, you should talk about the drivers, but make sure you're contextualizing why it's relevant to the case context. You don't want to just list a bunch of second level drivers blindly. You want to tie everything back to the case facts so that everything comes across as relevant to the case situation. Again, if you write down the question and underline the keywords, it'll help a lot in contextualizing everything. Now that you have the three strategies of how to create a great case structure, it's very important that you understand the difference between good versus great performance on this dimension. And one of the best ways to do this is to actually hear and see examples of good versus great structures across several different cases. And it's even more powerful if you actually practice alongside me in an interactive way. And so that's exactly what I'll talk about next. So now you've learned how to have a great structure for your analysis, but now you actually need to practice having a great structure. And in my Practice Case Interviews with Me program, you're going to get several cases where you'll actually practice the case alongside me. So in this program, I'm going to give you the case prompt and questions, and you're going to respond just like you would in the real world. Then we're going to pause after each key, like structuring your analysis, and you're going to see and hear the exact answer, one showing a good structure and another showing a great structure. I'm going to help you objectively score yourself just like a case interviewer would on each of the keys. So at the end of the case, you can see if you'd actually pass the interview in the real world and know exactly the areas you need to focus on to get the offer. With that said, I look forward to seeing you in key number 2, examining and uncovering.